Hello, my name is Cole Wilson. I'm a high school freshman this year, and today I'm going to be talking about a tool I made called Sailboat. Sailboat is a Python developer's best friend. It helps you package, distribute, and deploy your apps very simply without the need for too much configuration, while still giving you a huge and broad different choices for what you can do. It has a plugin-based architecture, which allows you to create your own plugins or use community-made plugins, as well as the plugins built into Sailboat. So in this presentation, let me share my screen. I've made a simple app. It's a Magic 8-Ball. So what it does is it asks you a question, and it gives you a random answer. So, and then it just, you can keep on asking until you push Control-C, and it will keep on responding with a random response from words.txt. So this file has all of the different ones, all the different responses, and it will choose a random one from that. I also have a license file, which is just some random text for now. It could be whatever license you choose to use. And also an icon file, which won't open in PyCon, but this is what it looks like. So I have these three very simple files. Icon and ICNS and words.txt are all optional, but you do need a Python file. So you're welcome to follow along with this quick tutorial. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the command line and type sail. You can also type sailboat. They're the same thing. It doesn't matter. You can also do it with some typos in it, and it will generally figure out what you mean. So what we want to do is type sail quick start. And this will create a configuration file called sailboat.toml. So it's going to ask us our full name of a project. So 8-Ball. Short name, the short name has to be unique. So I'm going to name it CW for Cole Wilson PyCon 8-Ball. If you're following along with this, be sure to change it to your initials or something else. Email. Again, change this to your own or a fake one, preferably the one associated with your GitHub account. Your names or name. And you can always change all of this information later. So don't feel like you have to get it right the first time. It's all editable later. So short description, 8-Ball for the terminal. I'm gonna leave long description out just for now. URL, you have to have an URL, but it can be anything. It doesn't actually matter what it is. PyPy just requires that you have a URL. So I'm just gonna put github.com. Keywords, 8-Ball, 8-Ball, magic, terminal, and magical, just separated by space. Again, you can change all this later. So it notices that we have a license file. So it's going to ask what type it is. So we're just going to say MIT, just making it up. And now it asks for a Mac icon file if we have one. Again, it's optional, but since I do happen to have one, I'm going to call it icon.icns. And this next part is really important. So Sailboat normally only knows about .py files. So only files like main.py, helper.py, anything that ends with .py. It won't recognize txt files. So if you want it to include your txt files, which we need it to do, we're going to type star.txt. And if we're going to do another thing, we could do like star.json, whatever. But the star.txt will tell Sailboat to include text files in the build process. Don't need any special modules. Main Python file is called main.py. Okay, so now it's going to ask us for a GitHub username, Cole Wilson. No, I do not have a GitHub repository. So go to github.com/new. And I'm just going to call it 8-Ball. Okay, once I get here, that's all I have to do. Sailboat will do the rest for us. So we'll go back to the terminal, type in 8-Ball as the name. It loads. Okay, and then if we go back to Chrome, you can see it's all uploaded. The .idea directory, that is my editor configuration file, so you can just ignore that. has nothing to do with that. Okay, so would we like to generate PyPy files? Yes, we do. This is what lets our module be installable by other people, and it gives it a command. So we want to do yes, generate PyPy or PyInstaller files. Yes, this is what turns our project into a executable for Mac, Linux, or Windows. So we want that because that way people can use our app if they don't have Python installed. Homebrew files, yes, because some users use Homebrew. Package manager just allows them to install it easily. So yes, we want that. So for PyInstaller, since our app is a command line app, we would like it to open a console window to display input and output. If your app uses something like tkinter or eel or Pygame, you would choose two, but we're going to choose one. We want a Mac app, a Windows app, and a Unix app. And we do have terminal commands associated with it. So we're just going to call 8ball. That's going to be our command. And we want that to just run the whole file. So we're just going to leave runs empty. If runs is empty, it just does the whole file. If you wanted to run a function, you can also do that. And we'll add another command just called ball and maybe 8. Okay, and then Control C to exit. Does our project have any entry points? No, we do not. Okay, so that created a configuration file, as you can see, called sailboat.toml. So if I open that up, you can see it has all of the stuff that you filled out, plus a couple of extra things like bundle ID. That's automatically added by PyInstaller. You can change that to whatever you want. Basically, this is all Sailboat knows about your project. This file is the only thing Sailboat remembers. So it's important to keep this up to date. And okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to type sail build 0.0.1 and wait for that to build. So what this does is it builds our app with all of the build plugins that we've set. So PyInstaller, Homebrew, and PyPy. That's what it's going to do. Okay, and it finished. So our directory structure is going to look a lot different. So I'm going to open up Finder. And you'll notice that there are a bunch of different, it looked a lot different. So you'll notice that main.py is no longer there. Icon, license, and sailboat.toml still there. Setup.py is new. Setup.py, if you've ever packaged a Python project before, you know that this is kind of complicated to create and you have to keep it very up to date. But the neat thing about Sailboat is it will automatically update it for you with all of the required information. So you can just leave this file here. You don't need to edit it. Instead, you can edit the sailboat.toml file and you can do anything you need with that. The bin folder is the command line executables for it. You still need Python installed to run these, but we'll get to the PyInstaller thing in a second. CW PyCon 8ball, that is the source. So this is the source of your whole project. PyCache file or PyCache file, just ignore that. That's just the compiled bytecode. But then you'll notice that words.txt moved here. Init.py is just, it's empty. It has to be there for Sailboat to work and for Python to recognize your project as a Python package, but you can either put stuff in it or leave it blank, but it has to exist. Main.py with the double underscores is where the original main.py is. Nothing's changed in that. Now, this egg info directory, this is just stuff that the Python interpreter needs to remember your module. You can either leave it there or delete it. It doesn't really matter. And then, okay, so dist. This is where everything really happens. All the other stuff was just kind of configuration and source, but this is where the end products are going to be. So PyPy, you'll notice that there's a python.wheel file. And this is just a standard Python library file. And then there's a source tarball. So we'll use these later when we upload to pypy.org. Okay, so next is do Homebrew next. So 8ball.rb, it's a Ruby Homebrew formula. Might look confusing if you don't use Homebrew. You don't have to build this. It's just a way for Homebrew users to install. PyInstaller is where the apps are built. Now you'll notice that there's only a Mac app here, and that's because I'm building this on a Mac right now. If you were building it on a Windows machine or a Linux machine, you'd have that operating system's binary. There is a way to get around this limitation though, which I'll talk about in a second. So if I open up the 8-ball package, you can see it works just like it should. And then, but if you were going to distribute this Mac application to people, you'd probably want it in an installer. Well, luckily, Sailboat has already made that for you. It offers a DMG disk image installer, so you can open that up, and it'll ask you to agree to the license. And this license can be whatever you put. It's not, it's fully customizable. Agree. And now you can see it's just a very simple drag and drop installer. So you can drop it, and I already have one, so I'm just going to place it. And there, it's in your applications folder. You can just run it like any old app. Okay, so now we want to release the Homebrew and PyPy packages. So what we're going to do is we're going to type sail release and give our release a title. So initial release, and push enter to confirm. And I need to put in my Python or my PyPy username. You have to create an account on pypy.org before you do this step. And then you'll notice that Homebrew, it has to wait 20 seconds for PyPy files to upload before creating a Homebrew formula. So that's just a time requirement, just so it gives PyPy some time to load the package on their end. So while we're waiting for that, let's go to Chrome and go to pypy.org. So you'll notice that this CW PyCon 8-ball, it's pip installable. So anyone who has pip installed on their system can go in and type that. So just it went straight from your Python file to an installable module. Just super simple. You don't need people to download the main.py file. Just all they have to do is type that in their terminal and then use this either in their code or through the terminal. So by now, Homebrew should have finished, yes. So let's open up that. So you'll notice that there's a file in this. I have other projects in here, but if I go to 8-ball, this is the finalized Homebrew formula. So it's just, this is a special GitHub repo made especially for Homebrew taps. If you don't already have one created, Sailboat will walk you through that. So back. And this is all super great, but what I want it to do is be able to set up continuous integration and deployment so that I can build non-Mac OS apps, because I might not have a Linux or Windows computer that I can do this on. So what I'm going to do is I am going to add a plugin. So I can do that with sail add and then the plugin name, which is actions in this case. And you'll notice that it added another build thing called build.actions. So now if I build, I'm going to build a patch for this version. So what that will do is this just means 0.0.2 instead of 0.0.1. So sail build patch. And you'll notice that there are 7 builds instead of 6 this time, and that's because it's building our actions file. So as we wait for this to finish, then you'll notice that there's a new .github folder. So if I open up that in the workflows directory, there's a sailboat.yaml file, which contains the GitHub continuous integration and deployment script that will build our app in the cloud. So instead of just releasing this right off the bat, we want to add the workflow file to our GitHub repository before we make a release. So that way GitHub already knows about it. So I'm just going to do sail git push, and this asks us for a message. So add workflow, and it will automatically handle all the adding and everything. And internet's been pretty bad today, so I'm just gonna speed this up while it waits. Okay, there. So it added our workflow file. So now what we want to do is, now that the workflow file is added, we're going to release a second time. So I'm going to do release number 2, push enter, and you'll notice that there's a new actions thing. So it's going to ask us for a password again. Okay, but you'll see it already released actions. So if we go to our GitHub repo, and we reload, you'll see this little yellow dot, which tells us that there are some actions being built. So if we go over to Actions tab up here and we click on Add Workflow, then you'll notice that there are 3 jobs: Ubuntu, Windows, and macOS. So these are each of the platforms that Sailboat will be building on. So this can take a little while, depending on just the speed of GitHub that day. It'll always pretty much take less than 10 minutes total, unless you have a really, really big project. So again, I'm just going to speed this up while we wait. All right, so it's built 2 of them. So if I go over to the main page, you'll notice that there's a new releases right here. So I can click into that and see version 0.0.2 added workflow. And it'll show me all the assets I have for this release. So it has the Homebrew formula, it has the Linux executable, and it has Windows exe, and it has the PyPy files and source tarballs and zips. So, and then if I reload, the Mac OS one is being slow, but it'll add here in a sec. But basically, this makes it so that anyone who has access to your GitHub repo, which is generally everyone, like to see it, will be able to click on these and just download them. So it's super simple and efficient way to release your project to different people. And then also, if you don't have a Linux computer or a Mac computer or a Windows computer, then you can build your app through GitHub Actions using this. There is one more thing I'd like to show you with Sailboat, is that it's not always, it doesn't always have to be a build or release plugin. There's a built-in plugin called Tasks, which I have to add it. So Sail Tasks, and you'll notice that this adds this command.tasks to the plugin section. So I can type Sail Tasks now, and it is a task manager. So you'll notice this is add foobar, and it tells me what file I have to do this in. So if I go to that file, you'll notice that I have a comment to do, add foobar. So, and then I can also choose, and it'll show me which line it is. So that's just an example of a super useful plugin that Sailboat can do. You can build your own. They're super simple. It would only take you about 10 lines of code to write a simple program. You can find information on that on the Sailboat website. So yeah, I hope this was informative, and I hope you check out Sailboat and let me know if you have any questions. You can check out Sailboat at sailboat.colewilson.xyz. So go to this URL, check it out. Let me know through the conference platform or through email. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to help. So thank you for watching.